It's choose your own adventure. Please go in the chat and vote right now. Would you like the entire show to be about Ukraine, Russia, or about Jeffrey Epstein? Please go in the chat right now and vote. The entire program will be devoted to whatever you, the two-way community, chooses.
That's not
Epstein,
a fair fight.
Epstein, Head Start, Head Start. Interesting choice. Ukraine. Oh,
I
serious group of people here. A lot of Ukraine. Epstein. Yeah. Anyway, those are the two big stories. Sean, Dan, and I will walk you through them and then take your questions. If you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. Today might be a day where we need 3 new people. So please, if you've never raised your hand on this program, do so. And if you're watching on X or on YouTube, this will be such a hard thing for so many of you to do in the context of today's news. But please, no smack in the chat. Peace, love, and understanding should animate all you do as you interact with us here on the program. Gentlemen, welcome back. Sean, is the Epstein story shrinking or growing? One word answer, shrinking or growing?
We're going right in.
growing.
Dan?
I agree.
Okay.
Can I make one point that no, it's not a, so in the communications world, I've always told people during trainings, crises last between 48 and 72 hours unless they're given additional oxygen. If you can snuff out a crisis and not add fuel to the fire within 48, 72 hours, it dies. And all of these drips just continue to give it the oxygen it needs to grow. So every time there's a statement put out or a leak, that just buys it another 48 hours. And that's what the problem is right now.
All right, we'll get to that in a minute. Thank you for that. Limited schedule today. The president has 2 events on his public schedule. 10 o'clock, he's meeting with the SecGen of NATO. Currently closed press, but we do expect at some point today the president to make what he's called a major announcement about Russia. Curious, we'll see whether he does it there. And then at noon, White House press pool is covering the president participating in the White House Faith Office luncheon. Don't know what the vice president's doing, although over the weekend he was at Disney having a bit of a spat with Gavin Newsom online while he was at Disney in LA with his family. House and Senate are in. 3:30, Republican Study Group chair holds a press conference on the 1-year anniversary of the Butler shooting. Senate's doing a lot of confirmations. And Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal are having dinner with the NATO Secretary General. I wonder where they'll go. I wonder if it'll be in a public restaurant, because you wouldn't want that conversation to be overheard. Justice Department is appealing today the judge's temporary restraining order that was limiting the way immigrants can be arrested in Los Angeles. And that's about it. So let's start with Russia, Ukraine. We'll get to Epstein in a moment and other things. The president last night talked on arrival at Andrews, and of course was asked about what he's proposing. It's pretty clear that part of this involves selling defensive weapons to the Europeans, who will then give them to Ukraine, eliminating at least one MAGA objection that this is more of U.S. tax dollars. In fact, the U.S. will make money off of this, in theory. And there's also reporting that it's not just going to be defensive weaponry, but offensive weaponry, the kind that the Biden administration was reluctant to share with Ukraine for fear of causing World War III. Here's the president last night at Andrews talking about Vladimir Putin. 103, please.
He talks nice and then he bombs everybody in the evening. So there's a little bit of a problem there, and I don't like it.
Sean, what do you know about what to expect today in terms of this announcement?
Well, first, I'm actually surprised. And I say this because when the president throws out a date as a one-off, and I believe that date was in a phone call with Kristen Welker, that to me, it's like it's a placeholder. Like within 2 weeks, I will announce this. And when he said on Monday, I actually was surprised, will be surprised today if they follow through, only because it wasn't like some big thought through press conference or statement. It was just a one-off. And so whenever those dates get thrown out, I'm always skeptical that they're hard, right? So it sounds like, based on the tarmac conversation last night and the idea that Root is in town today, that there'll actually be something. I wouldn't be surprised if he does talk about how this is going to be a transfer through NATO today and how they're supplying additional weapons. I leaned last week more on the sanction side. Maybe that's still true, but I have a feeling that he wants to ratchet up the weapons side, and he'll make that announcement today with the Secretary General.
Dan.
Yeah, and the other thing is that they're rumored to be getting ready to ask Congress for more money, which is also very interesting because that's going to put it right back, into the square of U.S. tax dollars going to defend them. And supposedly Russia is amassing troops in northeast Ukraine or on the border with it. They've been doing it now for a few months. So are the Russians getting ready to move, and are we going to provide more weaponry?
I will say initially the way he described it last night with his transfer to either NATO or to the EU, he sort of alluded to the fact it would go to the Europeans, but I think that means NATO. And then paying for it, I think is going to be a lot more palatable to folks where we're not picking up the tab.
Well, the opposite, right? We're gonna get money in.
Get money.
Why isn't the administration aggressively announcing support for the sanctions bills? Because they're still negotiating changes. My sense is
I think
it's
two things.
gonna
One
pass.
is he wants the power. I don't know where it stands. I think he wants to have the authority to do it, and I think at least the last draft had Congress mandating. So my understanding is he definitely wants the authority to do it. And then secondly, I think this goes back to just Trump 101, how he does business. Like, I think he's still trying to figure out, hey, look, it's all coming down the pike, Vladimir.
Yeah. And I don't want to minimize something that we sometimes minimize here, which is, or we don't, we do less than others. But if the president's really getting NATO, Europe to pay for this, as opposed to just the United Uncle Sam writing every check, it's an incredible development for U.S. relations with the world. And of course, it's NATO's backyard, and NATO really wants to help Ukraine. So sure, let German middle class.
Well, and also
this.
it's disproportionate than what we have paid and what they have. So
Yeah,
having them step up, I mean, all of what you said plus.
yeah, absolutely.
All right. But I also think the reality is we will end up spending more U.S. tax. I mean, I agree with you, Mark.
Sure, but
we
let's
will also end
split
up
it.
spending tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions more.
Yeah, but let's split it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Jeffrey Epstein. Lots going on. Laura Loomer is now attacking Charlie Kirk. There's still the questions of why the number one and number two at the FBI are at war with the attorney general when they seem to have agreed on the course to pursue. Talk about all that internecine stuff in a moment. The president's efforts to tamp this down don't seem to be working. Widely expected he'll try to change the subject today or this week, and hope, as Sean suggested earlier, that it will burn out. Here's a pretty critical thing we'll get to, right? Why are they doing what they're doing? And there's all sorts of conspiracy theories. The president's protecting himself. He's protecting his friends. He's protecting Mossad. Here's Ken Delanian on Morning Joe this morning, who covers the Justice Department, giving what I think is the most likely explanation for what's happening. Number 106, please.
And to answer your question, Joe, there are lots of files. There is no client list. And by the way, we've been reporting that for years. People who've covered this investigation, Tom Winter in New York, has been told that by investigators. What's in the files are a lot of pictures of victims, a lot of grand jury information, a lot of unfounded allegations that career prosecutors and FBI agents cannot in good conscience recommend be released. And one underlines.
Okay, so Dan, if that's what's in the files, shouldn't they just come out and say what Ken Delanian said and say there's no conspiracy here? It's just there's not anything in there that's releasable.
Sure, and then all the people on the right have to say, and we were wrong the last several years. I mean, that's the challenge. Is they use this to their advantage to hype it. They promise to get to the bottom of it. Now you would need to come out and say, just as he said, there is nothing. I think you then still have to release, I mean, always err on the side of transparency. But I think where they're making a huge mistake is they're trying to tell people now this is stupid and you're wrong to keep asking about it. And that is not a good place to be telling your own voters, like, go pound sand and buzz off. When for 10 years, you fed them the fuel almost daily.
John.
So I everything that I've heard matches what Ken Delanian said in that piece about what they actually have as information, whether you believe that or not. But I'll just say that everything that I have heard is exactly consistent with what Ken said.
And just to be clear, you won't read that in the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, or the New York Post today inexplicably. I don't understand why.
So the issue, again, I talked to a lot of people this weekend after our conversation on Friday just to try to really get an understanding of why people were pissed, what they were pissed at. I mean, kind of to the discussion that we had last week with that young man. And what this really seems to come down to, from my understanding, is that there was general agreement that, okay, here's how we're going to push forward on this. And what happened is that no one took into consider not no one took into consideration, but that there is this fact that Bondi went out and from every account, when she released those binders during that influencer event earlier this year, created an expectation. One, that the binders actually had something in them in the first place that day that they were handed out. And then there was a file in or a piece of paper in them that said part 2 coming soon. And there had been an expectation that they had a bunch of stuff, they were getting it, which basically everything in those binders, a lot of the people that I talked to felt like it was getting the wool pulled over their eyes, that this was an attempt to make it look like there was something a lot more that there was. So that happened, and every single person that I talked to, bar none, said that that was DOJ freelancing, that had not been approved, that no one knew that that was going to happen. They've created this issue with the binders, and then coupled that with the Fox interview with John Roberts, where I get what Pam is saying now, but there was an attempt. So now you've got Cash and Bongino in particular, who've talked about a list, who've talked about all this stuff, buying into, okay, we all reviewed it, nothing is there. And then they feel like, but Bondi gave everybody the impression that there is one, and now we're left holding the bag. And that's part of the problem, is that what a lot of the big people that I'm talking to in the movement who are complaining are saying, comes down to the fact that she goaded us to believing that there was more. She knew that there wasn't. And now that's why we're upset with her.
That matches my reporting exactly.
Dan, but here's the thing, though. You got to step back and just start with the fact that the DOJ held an event with social media influencers on a conspiracy theory. Start with that crazy fact. That is a total political stunt, of which the movement has lots of political stunts. Why are Kash Patel and Bongino in bad spots? Because they literally for a decade have gone on podcasts about how this is a democratic deep state, thing to destroy the Republican Party, and they're protecting the rich and all of this stuff. Total conspiracy theories, now it sounds like. So I have no sympathy for the movement that they're now like, oh, it turns out there was nothing here. I can't believe people are making a big deal of this.
Yeah, right. But Dan, I think though, and again, I get your point. I think that the nuance here is that after reviewing the material, and I'm not just
after getting facts. Yeah, no, I get it.
Then Bongino and Cash were like, fine, we'll fall on the sword. We'll say because we reviewed it now and we realized that what there is unreleasable for a myriad of reasons, exactly what Ken Delanian said, right? So we're willing to do this. And then you got Bondi who goes out and does this and says, yeah, I know there's nothing there, but I'm going to let everyone believe that there still is. And that undermined how do you fall on your sword then? And Bongino's like, you guys made me go out there, walk the plank, and then you let them still think that there's something there. I look like now I can't even fall on my sword appropriately.
Right. So there's some talk today, both from people in the administration and outside supporters, that the way out of this is a special counsel. To look at the whole thing. That seems to me to be foolhardy for 1,000 reasons. But Dan, if the president decided that was a good idea, who or what kind of person would be good for that job?
Well, then rule number one with special counsels is you want to try to control it as best you can. The problem is once you open the door to a special counsel,
yes,
they start sniffing around.
Yeah.
Although
this is not, in theory, this is not a special counsel looking to indict people. This is a special counsel looking to write a report, right? It would be.
Yeah, listen.
But it doesn't matter, though.
Ask Ken Starr what his original mission was.
Well,
exactly.
No, that's factually, it's a glib and humorous line, but it's factually not true.
What do you mean? He went fishing in all different places.
Yeah, but he wasn't. But he wasn't hired to write a report. He was hired to do a criminal investigation.
I get it. To look into a land deal in Arkansas. Am I?
Right. I mean, that's
what I've been told is this is not a special counsel to bring indictments. It's a special counsel to analyze the documents
And my point is that I'll revise Dan's rule. Rule 1 on a special counsel is never support a special counsel.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it's a bad idea. But my question is, if they go that route, throw out in it like John Ashcroft, like who?
So who is Trump's personal attorney these days? Whoever that is, that's going to be the special counsel.
Who's got enough confidence of MAGA that if they said nothing to see here, they'd believe it? Alina?
Yeah, maybe.
Who has enough?
But MAGA's got to trust.
But remember, Mark, part of the problem is that now as I said, the problem is that then they're going to say, great, why'd you hand us binders that said this? Why'd you go on Fox?
Yeah, I know.
Well, but I think the other thing is, what are they suspicious of? Powerful people are being protected, that the machine is that the rich. And so if you're going to appoint a special counsel and you're going to try to get everything out there, then won't you? I mean, this is where I think you get nervous. Then you're going to start doing depositions of rich and powerful people potentially. There's
not going to be any of that. Nobody's.
So that's going to be enough then?
Nobody's going to do that. All right. Lastly, just so we're all on the same page, no one's leaving, right? None of the three, neither of the FBI guys nor Pam Bondi are leaving, right? Pam Bondi was in the box yesterday at the World Cup. Trump posted favorably about it, right? All three are staying, correct?
I still am not clear on Bongino. I think Cash is definitely there. Pam's there.
Yeah.
I think the comments the president made last night about Dan were not as.
Let's play them. 105.
Well, and Mark, can we define the end by Labor Day?
Hold on. For the foreseeable future. Here's the president talking about his phone call with Bongino.
Oh, I think so. I did. I spoke to him today. Dan Bongino, very good guy. I've known him a long time. I've done his show many, many times. And he sounded terrific, actually. No, I think he's in good shape.
That to me means he's staying. All right.
I think by Labor Day, one of them's gone.
No, okay. If you stay past this week, you're in.
Exactly. And I think they will. All right. Either of you want to say anything about tariffs? There's lots going on, but in retrospect, even though I added it to the list, I feel like there's nothing meaningful.
Here's the one thing that I look, this is another one of those, to some degree, they set themselves off 100 days and 100 deals or something. Fundamentally, what everyone has to understand, though, is that 90% of this work happens at USTR. Okay. It's a building of 200, mostly career employees. They don't have the deputies, as I meant last year. There's a bandwidth issue, and I think the president's continuing to be extremely frustrated by the pace of what's happening. But to some degree, they can only do so much, and so I get why they're pissed. But that's where I think a lot of this is coming from. His sense of frustration at the pace.
I think just watch the EU, because they announced they were not going to do retaliatory tariffs to give this conversation the next 2 weeks a chance. And I think if they can strike some deal with the EU, then that's big progress.
And they're at the 5-yard line with that. They've got autos, some pharma stuff, a little metals, but and they, at least the language that I've heard discussed on autos is palatable.
And the Germans want a deal, it sounds like.
Yeah.
All right. Friday night, the Fed posted a FAQ on their website about how they're not wasting money building a Taj Mahal at the Fed. The president's allies continued all the way through today to continue to hammer on the Fed chair. The president yesterday at Andrews, same thing, drumbeat of the guy should resign, he's corrupt, etc. Here's 103. I'm sorry, not 103. Don't play 103. Play 107, please.
Well, I think if Jerome Powell stepped down, it would be a great thing. I don't know that he's going to, but he should. Jerome Powell's been very bad for our country. We should have the lowest interest rate on earth, and we don't. He just refuses to do it, and yet he's spending $2.5 billion rebuilding the Fed, the Federal Reserve building. And I don't know what he knows about building, but you talk about cost overrun. So he got this approved, and he started the work during the Biden administration. And he doesn't look like the kind of a guy, frankly, that wants to spend $2.5 billion. And it's very interesting because out of 71 economists, one person, me, and then one other person, I think from Wharton, got it right, and the others were all wrong. In
Okay.
terms of the
All right.
success of our
You dump out of
country
that.
this
You dump
quickly.
out of that. Here's Kevin Hassett this morning on CNBC asked if he'd like to be the Fed chair. 108.
Look, I'm not going to talk about me and speculate about me being Fed chair. You know, I'm really happy focusing on my job every day. The thing I can say is it's very important that the central bank be independent and that it keep inflation under control and that it do so with an eye on what's going on with the government policy elsewhere.
Dan, I've changed my view on two things. I think it's possible that they will force Powell out now, number one. I thought he was going to stay to preserve the independence of the Fed, blah, blah, blah. And number two, I no longer think Hassan is necessarily going to take the job.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think after that interview, he's going to be fired because he said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
You think
Dan?
it's Scott? Do you think it's Scott Bassett after all?
No, I think in the end he won't take it.
Okay.
But it might be. Dan, what do you think of the notion that the chairman might leave?
I don't think he will because I think the president, I don't think he wants to be the one to set the precedent that he was able to be run out. I mean, the reality is Trump has Trump could fire him, but he doesn't want to fire him because he likes the whipping pole. He wants to be able to blame somebody if the economy goes south or the big, beautiful bill takes a while to implement, that the reason that, things are not good is not my fault, but it's his fault. And he wants him still sitting there. I mean, look, the idea that Jerome Powell is like spending $2.5 billion, he didn't come up with the plans. He's not responsible for the implementation. As the stories have said, it's asbestos. It's the government has these old buildings. And if you're going to renovate them, fine, then move them somewhere else that's cheaper. Move them in the old FBI building if you're going to move people out. But, Trump's jumping all over the place. Why should we have the lowest interest rates on earth? That would mean we probably have the worst economy on earth. Like, that's just absurd.
Here's the deal. It's Professor Plum with the candlestick in the library.
Yeah.
Here's how this goes down. They are going to fire him for cause and claim that he was irresponsible with how he handled this. And then he will announce Scott Bassett is the Fed chair, and I will collect $200 and go.
Yeah.
I mean,
who will the Treasury Secretary be then, Sean?
I think there's two options. One is you move Hassett to that, or it's another Trump billionaire buddy. And Howard Lutnick will. Happy birthday, Howard Lutnick. I think he will try to make a play for it. I don't think that it'll ultimately end up being him, but I do think it'll be a Trump billionaire buddy.
Mark, you have a spiny sense on who that billionaire may be?
I do, but I can't say yet. But it's someone some of you have never heard of, I believe.
I mean, I do want to just log if that plays out and they fire him over the renovation of the Fed, that is so ridiculous and tragic.
I think he'll quit right before they fire him. All right. New York City mayor's race, those billionaires continue to struggle to figure out what to do. More people are moving towards endorsing, establishment Democrats are moving towards endorsing Mondami, although most haven't done it publicly yet. And now the New York Post and News Nation are reporting Andrew Cuomo is going to run. And the Post, this is 110, the New York Post says there's a catch. The catch is that Cuomo's proposal is that in September, whoever is first amongst the four other candidates besides Mondami everybody else agrees to get out of the race. And I've revised my position on this too. If this is one-on-one or 1-on-1.5 effectively, I no longer think Mondami is a sure thing. Dan.
I will.
So in other words, you are adopting the Dan Turrentine position.
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Correct. I'm caving to both of you today. Yeah.
The headline, the beautiful thing about the Cumberland Farms in Rhode Island here is that we've got, that's the cut. You get the New York, I get your primary stuff. Just quo away.
Yeah. But the reality is, for all the negativity the New York Post and others are expressing about Andrew Cuomo, there's no public or private polling that shows anyone in the race in a better position to beat Mondami than Cuomo. It's emphatically, factually correct. And yet most of the rich people and the labor unions say no, they want to go for Adams as the alternative, not the labor unions, the rich people. Adams the alternative. And again, Mondami is meeting with the business community this week. He's meeting with a lot of politicians this week. He's moving towards being like the real Pinocchio Democratic nominee. It'll be harder to beat him under those circumstances. Dan.
Look, I think, as I said, every day that goes by, and here's the one hitch in the Cuomo plan, is I don't see any scenario where Adams says, okay, you're right, I'll drop out. That's just,
right.
Or Sliwa for that matter. I mean, they're not going to do it. And
I agree.
Right. And so he needs this to be literally a moonshot.
So Friday morning, someone was nice enough to text me this audio of Mondami saying police shouldn't be dealing with things like domestic violence. Our own Dan Turrentine, in the heat of the moment, reacted quite passionately. He for his troubles, it was written up by Fox News, and then the New York Post took the Fox News story and ran it very prominently. I did not see a single other news organization report on that thing or get reaction from AOC or Chuck Schumer. And so this notion that like if stuff comes out, Oppo comes out, that it's going to have some traction and bring him down, just doesn't seem to be the case. Why did that story get no pickup except Dan's reaction?
You're asking Dan or the other Dan?
I'll ask you, Dan, first.
I don't know. I was actually really surprised myself. And the only thing I can think of, it was a summer Friday, and maybe they couldn't get, microphones in front of some of these people.
Yeah.
But I do think, though, to go back to what you said earlier, Mark, a minute ago, the advantage Adams has is he's the incumbent, which gives him levers to pull to squeeze people, whereas Cuomo is sitting on the sidelines. And I agree with you. He leads in the polls, and he leads Adams by like 20, 25 points. It's not insignificant. So I see why Cuomo would sit there and say, Adams, you need to get out. There's two people that I'm going to watch in the next 2 weeks. One is Al Sharpton. We can all roll our eyes, but he remains a very influential figure with the Black community here in New York. And two is Kathy Wild, who's the head of the New York City Partnership, which is like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for New York City, that has all the CEOs truly go to the meetings. It is a big, what deal. Do they try to put their finger on the scale to drive either Adams or Cuomo out?
Sharpton already did on Morning Joe.
Yeah,
Sharpton already basically said Andrews should get out.
But do they all? Those are the institutional powers that are left here in the city. I don't know if they're have enough power, but
right. All right, we've got two more topics to go. Sean, do you want to weigh in on that?
No, the funny part is this is like one of those issues where, to be honest, to Dan's model, there is an easy solution. Everybody unifies behind one. The problem is that none of the three candidates will agree that they'll buy into that thing. I mean, the three candidates would.
But Andrew's trying to basically say, okay, everybody's got a month and a half. Yeah, go for it.
I mean, my point is, I get it. That's to me the one way that you can agree. But none of the other two guys are going to jump off the cliff with him and say, "Guy, we're with you."
Well, but they might, in the sense that they got a month and a half to become number one or number two in the polls, and if they do, then they have a real chance to be mayor, right? It's a little bit of a prisoner's dilemma here, but it's different than like in 16 when Kasich and Christie and Jeb and Marco wouldn't get out, which is which poll do you go by? This is pretty simple. Go by the New York City public polls,
Well, and I think it's interesting because Adams has definitely started campaigning in the last week. He's getting more aggressive. He's giving interviews almost every day. He's holding press conferences.
He flew to Florida to be on a podcast.
Yeah, but Cuomo seems to want to camp out and put his feet up and almost like a rose garden, which is how he kind of ran his campaign to begin with, stay away. So to your point, can Adams put points on the board and start moving?
No, but he's being challenged. All right, two more topics and then your questions, please. Particularly if you've never raised your hand before on this program, please join us in a moment. All right, AP has a big story today, 111. Really not much news in it. It just rounds up all the Democratic presidential prospects and where they've traveled to, where people are going next. Again, a big focus on Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, as if we were in a time warp and everybody somehow assumes that those states are going to be first in the nation and have disproportionate influence. Again, a particular focus on South Carolina, but a lot of Iowa and some New Hampshire travel as well. Yesterday, one of the people who was mentioned in that AP story, Governor Beshear of Kentucky, was on the granddaddy of them all, Meet the Press, and he was asked, Governor, will you run for president? 112.
Is it accurate to say you are considering running for president? Well, right now, what I'm trying to do is speak out for my people and for the American people, especially with this attack on rural America and the big, ugly bill. Next year, I'm the head of the Democratic Governors Association, and because of this attack on rural America, we're going to win a lot of races that people aren't expecting, because a lot of Republican governors have said nothing, and their economies are going to get hit, and their people are going to have to drive 2 hours just to see a doctor when they're sick, whether they're covered by Medicaid or private insurance. And then after that, we'll see. I would have never considered this a couple years ago, but I will not leave a broken country to my kids or to anyone else's. And so if I'm somebody that at that point, and I believe that I can heal the country, then I'll take a look at it.
Sean, if Governor Beshear came to you and said, Sean, I want to enter and I want to be considered a top tier candidate, what would you tell him he needs to do to be considered a top tier candidate?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, I got to tell you, what Meet the Press has become is a shell of itself from when Tim Russert ran that show. I mean, it is, anyway, I'll leave that aside, but I'd go hire some, I mean, look, the way you become I think you got to hire some quality people that send a message that you're serious. You hire a top fundraiser, you hire a top strategist. I think you go get some big donors aligned with you, set up a super PAC. You got to do the things that show that you've got muscle. And experience so do those things. And then secondly, I think on a tactical standpoint, this is something that we've talked about for a while. I think it's starting to go to places and show a different side of yourself that's authentic and real. I mean, to me, going on, Meet the Press or something like that is very traditional and old school, but I think, him finding ways to do things, and highlight aspects of himself that aren't about him being a governor or a political person is probably important.
Dan, if Governor Beshear called you and said, hey, I saw Sean on the morning meeting say I need to hire a top fundraiser and I want it to be you, what will it take? What would you tell him?
Nothing. I would be divorced. I would be divorced if I got back into this. Look, for one, I actually thought his messaging was good. He's never going to be he's never going to win the charisma prize. He's not going to be the one who goes out and does aggressive stunts the way Gavin Newsom is starting to do them more and more. But, that's a good message. It's authentic. He can speak to rural America better than almost any governor can right now, because we don't have a lot of rural governors. So I thought for the cards he has and who he is, that's pretty good. It's hard to raise money when you're a little more vanilla and, ho-hum, like ask Dick Gephardt in 2004 how that went, even with all his history. He struggled pretty mightily. So, but I think it's good. And look, I think at the end of the day, it is great all these Democrats are getting out there, because what do we always say? We have no leader, no agenda, and no vision. And you're starting to see people tiptoe out in front. And when there's a big event, stepping forward to speak. That's great.
By the way, I'll give him a B plus, depending on the day, on his response. He worked in some good messaging. I agree with Dan. Yeah. He needs a little bit more like caffeine in there.
Is it possible, not asking to predict, is it possible he will be considered a top tier candidate?
I think so. Given the field on the Republican side, I would say a guy like him who has won a reddish state, who has gotten some positive kudos as governor. I mean, again, he's not my cup of tea, but I would, if I were back at the RNC and I would say I oversaw Oppo for 6 years. I would tell my team, guys, make sure we got to put extra people on this. He is someone that I would have assumed could end up the nominee.
Dan? I think what the calendar is to start. If Iowa goes first and then New Hampshire, and let's say the big, beautiful bill has a rough rollout in the next 2.5 years, he has the potential, because I think if he's methodical and it's like, this is who I am going to stick to substance. I'm not going to win again, the Twitter, wars. He may end up being top tier.
All right. I don't think so.
By the way, I'm also judging on a curve. Just, I want to be clear about,
yes.
I'm not impressed with the field.
Yes. All right. One more, I'll say one thing I'll say one thing about this, and then we'll talk about Joe Biden and then your questions. All the governors now are saying every rural hospital is going to close. All these people are going to lose their health care. It's becoming a binary thing. If their predictions are correct, if people have to start driving 2 hours to get to a hospital, et cetera, they'll be, even though some of these things kicking after the midterms, the Republican Party will be decimated. And if they're not true, if it turns out that rural hospitals are not closing, it's going to be pretty embarrassing for them to have made all these doomsday predictions.
Yeah, but let me get back to the point you said, and I just want to underscore it because it's critical. None of these reforms take place till 2028.
Yeah.
So there's a story. Even who was it? Politico today said there's some hospital that's already claiming that they're closing because of this, and it's just simply not true.
Correct.
There are no reforms that are going into place until 2028. So anyone that closes between now and then is full of it.
Right.
Well, hold on. Wait, hold on. We got. It is not just the Democrats saying that, Mark. It is local, like hospital associations and hospitals.
Yeah, but let's see if they're right.
I said 2 weeks ago.
I hope they're wrong. Yeah.
All right. I said 2 weeks ago, I want to keep saying this, that I have been told by someone on the Senate Republican finance, on the finance committee, a Republican, that these cuts will never see the light of day.
Yeah.
Republicans are going to kick them down the road.
Yeah.
And then they are going to undo them. And their hope, Sean, is that Democrats take the House back. The Democrats ask to undo them, and they'll go kicking and screaming that the Democrats undid their reforms, but nobody expects them to ever happen.
Correct.
Hello,
all right.
fraud.
Joe Biden did 0 interviews with the news side of the New York Times while he was president. He did some columnist interviews, but last Thursday, he did an interview with the New York Times, about 10 minutes long, 113, for this bizarre story about Joe Biden's use of the auto pen in dealing with clemency. The story largely is credulous about Joe Biden's account in saying Biden said he made all the decisions. But the one piece that Republicans are focusing on is he said there's a category of pardons where he didn't actually deal with the specifics. The chief of staff said, here's the criteria the president agreed to. Here are the people who meet the criteria. These people are pardoned. Shove it in the auto pen. So I'm amazed that people are so down on this account in the sense of, I don't think this is going anywhere, at least off of that story. I think it's fine for Biden. I don't really know why he did it, but I think it's fine for Biden. Dan, is this story a disaster for Biden or nothing, or something else?
No, I think the timing's terrible with the Epstein stuff. Like, it was kind of fun to be a Democrat this morning, and then like you see that and you're like, oh God. No, I think this story is not a big deal, except for the fact that they're getting ahead of the curve makes me wonder if something else is coming. That's what I mean. Look, Sean, administrations use the auto pen all the time.
No. 100% agree. Yes.
Yeah, congressional offices use the auto pen all the time.
But Dan, don't you think the president's supposed to decide on each individual pardon?
No, well, hold on a sec. The fact they have a paper trail actually gave me some comfort. They clearly knew this could be a problem, and so they created a paper trail that, it sounds like, again, if the story's true, they have all the emails saying for this, on the more controversial stuff, specific people, hey, he spoke about this person and this person. So again, it's all verbal.
But just answer my question. Is it okay for the president to say anyone who's left-handed and over 6 feet tall should be pardoned? Go to it. Shouldn't he be signing off on individual pardons?
No, I don't necessarily agree with that. And it sounds like they did pull some out and say this person's offense was so bad, don't commute it, don't pardon. So there were people reviewing them individually, and they had their antennas up to say, this may be a problem. They brought it to the president, again, according to the emails, and they decided, okay, we're not going to do that person.
Sean, I mean this with peace, love, and understanding. Please bring Dan back to planet Earth.
Let me just read the exact line from the New York Times.
Yeah.
Mr. Biden did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons that applied to large numbers of people. Rather, after extensive discussion of different criteria, he signed off on standards he wanted to be used. Mr. Zients, the chief of staff, is the one who sent the email saying approved. That's not what the law, the Constitution gives the president the power to pardon, not Jeff Zients. And the idea that
he delegated it. He delegated it.
That's not what the Constitution says, though.
Well, the president delegates. There's all sorts of powers in the Constitution.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean,
that the president has that he delegates.
Who had drug offenses. I mean, you can disagree with how they do it, but like, to Mark's point, he has the power. And I don't have a problem with like saying, okay, we're going to do 5,000 people that have these small drug offenses. And a team reviewed them to say, here are like I think it was like 4 or 5 people. You know what? These are not good parties.
Dan, if Trump did that, you'd be screaming.
Also, look, here's the one thing I think there, if in the context of a situation
that is rich, that is super rich.
In the context of a situation where you have a president of the United States who are now continuing to question his cognitive and physical abilities to uphold the office, and is now admitting that, yeah, I just kind of let the chief of staff make those decisions. I have a feeling. So here's what I learned in my hearing that the Senate Judiciary held. It's going to take somebody at some point to challenge a pardon, right? There has to be a means by which you almost have to have standing, go to court and say, okay, I don't think that Mark Halperin should have gotten that. I'm charging him with a crime. And then you litigate the validity of the pardon. But at some point, I have a feeling that this is going to come further. And Republicans, if they were smart today, we talked about this moment, just if we are politically speaking, then this is an opportunity today to turn the page and to say, all right, let's put the screws on these guys.
But hold on. I want to flag. Why are they doing this? Because they want to go after the people on the January 6th committee that Biden pardoned because they want revenge. So if we're going to talk about the pardon process, and Trump this whole thing is about revenge, which is a horrific precedent that he's setting. He wants to go target them all.
Yeah. I'll just say this, that I thought Joe Biden was pretty good in the interview. But if the shoe were on the other foot, I can't believe the New York Times wouldn't have gone and gotten Adam Schiff's reaction. There's no Republican reaction in that story.
Yeah.
There's no legal expert quoted in the story about whether
you see the pattern here. Just a minute ago, we're talking about why no one goes after Mondami, says anything about Mondami's coming. Here we have again the press does not. The legacy left-wing press refuses.
That's the point. It's the point I'm making. It's like that's basic journalism 101. Biden is now taking the position that he could delegate pardons. Right? That's the position they took in the story. Everything else is fine. That's the one thing. So what do law professors think about that? What do Republicans think about that? It's absent from the story. I don't understand that as a matter of journalism. And I guarantee you, if it were a Republican, they'd have both those things. They'd have some hysterical law professor saying this is an impeachable offense, and they'd have a Republican saying this needs to be investigated. It's absent from the story. It's madness.
I think something else is coming. Why did he pick the phone up after 5 years and call them? Something is coming.
Have you read the story the other day? Like the reporter, like he is picking up the phone and then they changed his phone number. Yes. Like I think that, I think he'll talk to anybody at this point.
Now, because I want to say, because I think there is something else coming and I don't have knowledge. Yeah. But I suspect they're laying the predicate that he delegated and they put out these like drug offenses, which seem small because there's a bigger case coming.
I agree with you. And of course,
if that happens,
I agree.
I revise and amend all my remarks.
I agree. And of course, there's no transparency into the question of what went into the decision to preemptively pardon all those people. Yeah. And almost no discussion.
The only one he hand signed just happened to be Hunter's.
Right. Exactly. Another question the New York Times didn't ask. What about Bob? Well, we'll ask the question. Bob, welcome in. Thank you for joining.
Wait, can I make one more point before we take questions? I got to say last night, because I brought it up in the chat. So
what about Bob?
The FIFA, like the president at FIFA last night was epic. That was Donald Trump at his best, producing a moment. And I love the fact that the FIFA president tries to pull him and he's like, nope, I'm staying for the presentation.
Yeah. All right. Play 114 while Bob asks this question, because it is great video. Everybody just watch this.
Kind of dancing.
Chelsea. FIFA
dancing a little there.
What a day for them. What a journey.
All right. Get out of that.
All right, the audience needs to know the real reason we watch that is Mark's a Chelsea fan.
Exactly. Big win for Chelsea. Bob, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind. Thank you for being part of Two Way.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm in Dixon, Illinois, northern part of Illinois, about an hour and a half west of Chicago. I wanted to make a comment, Mark. Didn't Basic Journalism 101 die? Wasn't that buried about a decade ago? In my opinion, I heard Sean make a reference to Tim Russert also, and I used to be an inveterate watcher of all the Sunday shows, and I gave up on those probably about 4 years ago. But rest in peace, Tim Russert. Sometime I want to pick your guys' brain on when this change in the media happened, but I kind of buried my lead here. I want to talk about the Epstein deal, and to paraphrase Shakespeare, I've come to bury the Epstein story, not to fan the flames of it, but unfortunately, it'll probably work out that way. I don't understand why people have their teeth dug into this story so hard. I don't understand. I keep asking questions about like basic principles. Where's the proof? What makes you think this happened? Why do you think, it seemed like almost immediately, and a good friend of mine, for example, said that Epstein had killed himself right after it happened. And I said, well, what makes you say that? I mean, you could theorize, but is there any proof of any of that? And yet this seems to be something that comes up time and time and time again. I understand all the mishandling that you guys were talking about, the messaging from the Trump administration. I agree they could have served it up better for sure. But I just want to get back to basic facts, because it seems like people have heard certain things so many times that they just state it as a fact, and I haven't seen any evidence. So why is this so important? I mean, we've got a national debt that's exploding. We've got other topics that you guys have ran down this morning, the Ukraine war, all kinds of things going on in the world, and yet we are worried about this.
All right, Bob.
Yeah,
Bob, your argument's not with us; it's with the attendees of Charlie Kirk's conference. But Dan, address Bob as best you can.
Sure. I mean, I'll say two things why I think it's still talked about. One is, look, you have an FBI director and a deputy director who literally for 10 years wouldn't stop talking about this. Republicans used it to their advantage to discredit institutions, to say there was a deep state covering for Jeffrey Epstein, what happened and his clients. The second thing is there have been cases in the public. Jess Staley, the former vice chair of JP Morgan, then went to become CEO of Barclays, and what's his name at Apollo, who got fired or lost their jobs. There were lawsuits. I think it was in Jamaica or the Bahamas sued Barclays, and emails came out, and the amount of involvement and the plane and stuff like that, where people said, wow, I wonder what else more is out there. Who else was involved? And it's very powerful, rich people. So there have been enough breadcrumbs to make people suspicious, and then enough people fanning the flames.
Yep. I agree. I mean, look, the bottom line is, and a lot of it just doesn't add up, right? I mean, you talk about rich, powerful, people connected to this guy, and suddenly, I mean, there's enough of it's like written out of like Hollywood scripted kind of thing, where you've got a guy who's very rich and powerful associating with rich and powerful people, and a lot of legal intrigue. And there's been, to Dan's point, I think is it the Virgin Islands that
was it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that there's been lawsuits and things where we know that there's lists, we know that there's, that there have been things kept. And so therefore, I mean, enough of it all fits together. It's like an episode of Dateline.
Well, but I guess what I'm saying is I understand like why people watch true crime shows too, right? Because they like to figure it out, and there's that kind of salacious stuff. Dixon is known for two things. Besides being the hometown of Ronald Reagan, it was I think the biggest embezzlement in the history of the United States. A lady here named Rita Crunwell stole $50 million over the course of 25 years, embezzled it. And there's actually one of those shows, crime shows, has a documentary about it. People could Google it if they want. But the FBI came into town. She was arrested. There's all cut to the chase here. But there are people still here in town that think there were other people involved in it. Even though people always think that there's more to the story, and I just don't understand why it's almost an article of faith now that there is, a list. I don't even know what the list means. Are you saying there's a list of people that paid Jeffrey Epstein for pedophile activities or something? I mean, does anybody know this? I've never heard anybody. I can't find a source to prove that this exists. You have two administrations now. There was 4 years of a Biden administration. Epstein killed himself in 19.
Bob, there's no doubt that you're speaking for many, and there's no doubt in my mind that you're more right than wrong. But I will say there are millions, tens of millions of people in this country who do care. And whether you think they shouldn't or not, you can't ignore the fact.
Well,
that
but I think, Bob, to the point that I was making before, there's a degree to which there's a pattern that people believe things are covered up, and why they believe this, or not just believe it, but want to see the documents, is that, I mean, you think about what the president talked about, MLK, JFK. There are a series of incidents where people believe that information was withheld to them to protect certain people. And so when they were promised it, they got their hopes up and thought, okay, we're finally going to find out the truth. And then when it gets withheld, you go, okay, see, maybe it really is true. And that's how high it goes.
Yep.
So I think part of this is that there's a feeling that things are continuously withheld to protect certain people. And when you're promised, I'm finally going to show it to you, and then at the last minute, Lucy pulls the football again, you go, maybe I really am right.
Yep. Bob, thank you. Great question. Aaron, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind.
I'm in Leavenworth, Kansas. It's right across from Kansas City. I'm from Kansas City, but just moved out here. To the previous guest's point on why it matters, I think that it matters because there's been so much in such a short period of time, especially when it comes to COVID and the cover-up of the media of Biden's mental acuity, that the amount of trust and everything around us has dropped so precipitously that something as big as this that's been on people's minds for so long, like, I don't understand how we couldn't second guess everything when we've been doing that. But my question is, there's been a lot of speculation about a cut in the Republican Party right now over this. And I was wondering if you guys have seen any other of the separations in what got Trump elected, like with Maha and I believe the Moderna vaccine just being scheduled for children through the HHS, and if there's any other fractures you're seeing in the coalition that brought him together at the moment.
Great question.
Sean.
I think so far, and I'm not the number one expert on Maha, but I will say that I think by and large the people I talk about give Bobby Kennedy a lot of credit for what he has been pursuing. I don't think it's 100%, but I think it's in the 90s. And so when you look at a lot of these things that the president has promised that he would do or go after or not, I think by and large the MAGA agenda is getting pursued pretty close to what was promised.
Dan.
Yeah, it's a great question. Coalitions tend to start coming apart when the rubber meets the road and you have to make difficult decisions, and you can't do everything for everybody. So it's definitely something that people watch. It's something Democrats are watching, and we'll have to see.
Do you find it as an actual concern that the administration is focused on right now, or is it something that many in the media are just grabbing a hold of to help it along in order to actually split the coalition that was?
Oh, I think the White House is super attuned to this. That's just I think J.D. Vance is attuned, the midterms, Trump doesn't want a Democratic Congress with subpoena power and all of that. And, J.D., look, once it breaks, it's hard to put it back together. You just don't know what the future holds.
Having that coalition hold for the midterms is critical. Yep. And so getting people enthusiastic about the agenda and moving forward is going to be key, especially in a lot of these tight districts.
Aaron,
awesome.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Aaron. Matt, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind.
Good morning, guys. Greetings from Truckee, California, 40 minutes west of the biggest little city in the world. Wanted to get us off of Epstein Gate for a second and chat about China and rare earths with you guys in the context of that Pentagon deal with MP materials, that was announced last week. Kind of flew below the radar a little bit. We're racing to mine and process rare earths here in the U.S. What do you think China's response is to that deal? And then as part of the trade negotiations with China, do you think that deal gives us any additional leverage, or is the impact of the deal too long-term to matter?
Very good questions. Dan or Sean?
Yeah. Great question. Look, I think rare earth minerals, as AI and other technologies that rely on them continue to develop and become part of our everyday life and military future, who controls them and who has access to them is going to be huge. I think it's one of the reasons I look cross-eyed at the way sometimes we talk about Africa, parts of South America. The Chinese for the last 20 years have been going and striking these deals all over the world. They've been pretty transparent about it.
Yep.
And we've been focused on other stuff.
Yeah, look, I'm excited that whether there's actually a DoD pilot program with Canada that's part of this agreement that or will it get enhanced? That's part of what we're trying to do with Canada right now. So I think any attempt to get ahead of these things is brilliant. I don't think it's sending a shockwave through China yet, but I do think that for our leaders to understand that you cannot be tethered to somebody who inherently wants to destroy you. And that includes Taiwan, right? So they make almost all the semiconductors. And so if we are tethered to them and China is going to reunify Taiwan to the mainland, that's a problem. So the more that we start thinking long-term about our own viability and our own independence, whether that's the defense industrial base, rare earth minerals, the ability to computers and technology is critical. And I'm glad to hear that those kind of announcements make me at least a little bit more optimistic about the future.
Matt, anything else?
No, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I was
Thank
of
you.
the belief that we wouldn't have relied on the Soviet Union during the Cold War to supply this stuff, so we've got to diversify.
Yeah.
Great analogy.
Good metaphor. Thank you.
Metaphor.
Thank you. It's an analogy too. It's all good. Sean, what do you have tonight?
Well, yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the Butler assassination attempt. Selena Zito, who wrote the book Butler, will join us. And then Susan Crabtree, who's at Real Clear Politics and has been covering the Secret Service probably better than anybody when it comes to the reforms they've made, will join us as well to talk about whether or not lessons learned from that fateful event have come through and whether the right people are being held accountable or not.
Great. All right, 2 more two-ways today. At noon today, Meghan McCain with the great Ben Ferguson. We'll be talking about news of day. Please tune in at noon Eastern time for Citizen McCain with Meghan. And then I'll be back at 6 tonight with an old guest and a new one. Old meaning returning. Matt Gorman, a Republican, will join us. And then Stephen Olikara, a really interesting guy. Been reading all about him. Looking forward to having them both on the show. We'll round up the day's news, and you don't need the world's most sensitive spidey sense to be of the belief that there will be some Epstein developments between now and 6 Eastern time. So we'll round all that up for you. And of course, what the president's big NATO announcement is. I want to close by going back to Epstein and asking you both, besides the president himself, who are the 3 people who you're most interested today in what they say and do? Who are the 3 people, 3 each? Sean.
Bondi, Patel, Bongino.
Dan.
JD Vance, Bondi, and Bongino.
JD Vance, Bondi. And
JD Vance. I've started seeing people online asking, "Where's JD?"
My list.
I mean, they know where he is, but
so what are your 3
on this issue?
Mine are Loomer, Kirk, and Vance. Loomer, Kirk, and Vance.
I have a feeling that after that call with President Trump, that Charlie's a team player.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is I'm less concerned because I have a feeling that he's gonna maybe just tone it down more than fall in line.
Yeah.
But I think the Laura, I don't know. We'll see.
I'll also be curious where the Fox News primetime hosts are tonight.
Also interesting. I agree. You do a conference with 7,000 people and all 7,000 people say they have a certain position. It's hard to be a quote unquote team player under those circumstances. Loomer went after Charlie really hard this morning. Maybe it was last night. I saw it this morning. She went after him really hard. But as I discussed with him last week, like you can't ignore the people on MAGA under 30 really feel strongly about this. And so if you want to calm them down, you either have to give them what they want or explain why they should want something different. And that's why I think you're seeing some Trump allies say to the White House, you guys got to give them something different. Like you got to give them reason to understand why.
Well, one of the, I mean, you kind of, their special counsel, I think the president, knowing the president, I have a hard time believing he's going to sign off on a special counsel. But I do think the other thing that the people are floating out there is some kind of forum in some way.
Yeah.
The Q&A, press conference, long form interview.
Yeah.
I still like I think that's asking for more trouble. I get why you do it.
Yeah.
I just don't until they have answers. That's the problem is that it's easy to give you the solution. You should do a long form interview. And then you go, okay, tell me what I'm going to say. And you go, gotta go.
Exactly.
All right. Do they put people out tonight on cable?
No.
No way. No way.
No.
No way.
Look, what they should do and what they will do are different.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We'll see. Again, we'll be back in 23 hours. We'll be talking about many of these same issues. That's what happens in the summer. And I'll be on at 6 p.m. tonight to talk about many of these issues. So we'll see you then. Thank you. Have a great day.